16 years ago, I had everything a man could want. A beautiful wife who was 7 months pregnant with our first child, a successful career as a structural engineer, and a close-knit family who had always supported me. Then it all came crashing down because of one vindictive coworker and her elaborate lie. My family believed her without question. My father and brother physically attacked me in our family home, and my wife Emma filed for divorce the very next day. I lost my child, my family, and my reputation in one devastating week. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If false accusations have ever impacted your life, hit subscribe and like this video. This journey from rock bottom to redemption is one you will not want to miss. I grew up in a traditional family in Connecticut where loyalty was valued above all else. My parents, Richard and Martha, raised my younger brother Jake and me with strict expectations about honor and family reputation. Dad was a respected surgeon at the local hospital, while Mom managed a successful real estate business. They provided us with comfortable lives, but demanded excellence in return. Jake was the athletic golden boy, while I was the studious, responsible one who rarely challenged our parents' expectations. Despite our different personalities, Jake and I were close growing up. We shared a bedroom until I left for college, confided in each other about our struggles with our demanding parents, and defended each other when necessary. He was my best man when I married Emma, and I truly believed nothing could break our bond. I met Emma during my senior year of college at a fundraising event for the engineering department. She was studying nursing, and her warmth and compassion immediately drew me to her. With honey blonde hair, intelligent blue eyes, and a laugh that could light up a room, she was undeniably beautiful, but it was her kindness that made me fall in love. Our courtship was straight out of a romance novel. I would leave small gifts in her locker at the nursing school. She would surprise me with homemade cookies during late-night study sessions, and we would spend hours talking about our dreams for the future. After 2 years of dating, I proposed during a sunset picnic at the lake, where we had our first date. She cried happy tears and jumped into my arms before saying yes. My family adored Emma from the moment they met her. Mom appreciated her traditional values and homemaking skills, Dad approved of her education and career ambitions, and Jake treated her like the sister he never had. The Wilsons welcomed me into their family with equal enthusiasm, creating a merged, extended family that celebrated holidays and milestones together. Our wedding was a joyful affair with 200 guests witnessing our union at the historic church in my hometown. We purchased a modest 3-bedroom home in the suburbs, close enough to both our families for regular Sunday dinners, but with enough distance to establish our own traditions and routines. The first 2 years of marriage were blissful. We both worked hard at our careers, but made time for each other, planning date nights and weekend getaways. We saved diligently, hoping to start a family once we felt financially secure. When Emma announced her pregnancy on our 3rd anniversary, it felt like the perfect next chapter in our story. The timing coincided with a promotion at Anderson Engineering, where I had been working since graduation. My new role as project manager came with more responsibility and a significant salary increase, allowing Emma to reduce her nursing shifts in preparation for motherhood. We converted the spare bedroom into a nursery, painting the walls a gentle yellow since we had decided to be surprised by the baby's gender. It was around this time that Alicia Jordan joined our team at Anderson. From her first day, something about her made me uncomfortable. She was undeniably competent with impressive credentials and sharp analytical skills, but there was a calculating quality to her interactions that put me on edge. At first, I dismissed my concerns as unfounded. Alicia was professional in meetings and contributed valuable ideas to projects. But slowly her behavior toward me began to change. She would find reasons to touch my arm during conversations, schedule unnecessary private meetings to discuss project details, and frequently mention her recent divorce and how lonely she felt. I kept our interactions strictly professional, always mentioning Emma and our expected baby when Alicia veered toward personal topics. I made sure to never be alone with her behind closed doors, and I declined her invitations to grab drinks after work. In retrospect, I should have reported her behavior to human resources, but I feared making accusations without concrete evidence would reflect poorly on me as a newly promoted manager. The situation came to a head during the company Christmas party. Emma was experiencing swelling in her feet, a common issue in the third trimester, and decided to stay home. I planned to make a brief appearance to maintain good relationships with clients and upper management. Alicia arrived in a revealing dress and spent the evening following me around despite my attempts to engage with other colleagues. When I announced I was leaving early to get home to Emma, Alicia offered to walk me to my car, claiming she needed fresh air. In the parking garage, she suddenly pressed herself against me and tried to kiss me. I immediately stepped back and firmly stated that her behavior was inappropriate and unwelcome. Her expression changed from seductive to furious in an instant. I left the party shaken by the encounter, but confident I had handled it appropriately. I told Emma about the incident when I got home, and she agreed I should speak with my supervisor about Alicia's behavior. Unfortunately, that conversation never happened because Alicia struck first, setting in motion the destruction of my life as I knew it. The Monday following the Christmas party, I noticed immediate changes in my workplace. Colleagues who had been friendly for years suddenly avoided eye contact conversations, would stop when I entered the break room, and my supervisor Thomas called me in for an unexpected meeting. In his office, Thomas informed me that Alicia had filed a sexual harassment complaint against me, claiming I had been making unwanted advances for months and had attempted to coerce her into sexual activity at the Christmas party. She had provided fabricated text messages and had convinced 2 colleagues to support her claims that they had witnessed inappropriate behavior. I was stunned and immediately denied the accusations, explaining what had actually happened. Thomas seemed skeptical, but assured me there would be a thorough investigation. In the meantime, I was placed on administrative leave with pay, a standard procedure, but one that felt like a presumption of guilt. Driving home in a daze, I called Emma to explain the situation. She was initially supportive, expressing outrage at Alicia's lies and promising to stand by me through the investigation. We agreed to meet with an employment attorney the next day to ensure my rights were protected. What I did not know was that Alicia had already taken her character assassination campaign beyond the workplace. She had somehow obtained Emma's cell phone number and had sent her a lengthy message detailing my supposed infidelity, including fabricated details of hotel meetups and intimate encounters during business trips, which consisted only of work-related messages and offering to provide my location history to prove I had never been to the hotels. Alicia mentioned. Emma listened silently, her expression unreadable, and finally said she needed time to think. She went to sleep in the guest room, leaving me awake and anxious in our marital bed. The next morning, Emma left early for a shift at the hospital without saying goodbye. Hoping to give her space while still moving forward with my defense, I met with the attorney alone. He was cautiously optimistic about countering the workplace accusations, but warned that sexual harassment cases often came down to credibility, and the company might choose to terminate me rather than risk negative publicity. When I returned home that afternoon, I found my in-laws' car in the driveway. Robert and Diana Wilson had always treated me like a son, and I hoped they would be allies in this nightmare. Instead, they greeted me with open hostility, informing me that Emma had called them in distress and was now at my parents' house, speaking with my family about the situation. Confused and increasingly desperate, I drove to my parents' home, expecting that at least my own family would hear me out before passing judgment. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Emma's car alongside Jake's motorcycle and felt a momentary relief that everyone I loved was together, surely working to understand the truth. That hope was shattered the moment I entered the living room. Emma sat on the couch, visibly pregnant and crying, while my mother comforted her. Dad and Jake stood nearby, their expressions dark with rage. Before I could speak, Dad stepped forward and demanded to know how I could betray Emma, disgrace the family name, and jeopardize everything for an affair. I tried to explain about Alicia's false accusations and manipulation, but no one was interested in hearing my side. Jake called me a liar. Emma sobbed harder, and Mom looked at me with crushing disappointment. When I reached out toward Emma, Jake shoved me backward. The situation escalated rapidly as I tried to defend myself, resulting in Jake punching me in the face while Dad restrained me rather than him. With blood streaming from my nose, I made one final plea for them to listen, to consider why Alicia would fabricate such elaborate lies to remember my character and history of honesty. Dad responded by stating that I was no longer welcome in their home and that he could not bear to look at the son who had caused such pain to an innocent woman carrying his grandchild. Physically and emotionally beaten, I left the house that had always been my safe haven. The next day, I received divorce papers from Emma's lawyer citing irreconcilable differences and requesting full custody of our unborn child. She had emptied our joint bank account, taking the $15,000 we had saved for baby expenses and leaving me with barely enough to cover the retainer for a divorce attorney. My attempts to contact Emma were met with silence or legal threats. My parents blocked my calls, and Jake sent a single text message telling me to stay away from the family forever. At work, the investigation was proceeding at a glacial pace, with increasing indications that the company was building a case for termination rather than seeking the truth. The final crushing blow came 3 weeks after the initial accusations. A former high school friend sent me a message expressing surprise that I was not at the family gathering where Jake had announced that he and Emma were now in a relationship. My brother and my pregnant wife, finding comfort in their mutual hatred of me, had somehow developed romantic feelings amid the chaos of my destruction. I learned later that Jake had been secretly infatuated with Emma for years, silently envying my relationship while playing the supportive brother role. The crisis had given him the opportunity he had been waiting for, and he had positioned himself as Emma's protector and confidant, easily transitioning to lover once I was out of the picture. The betrayal by the two people I had trusted most left me hollowed out, questioning everything I thought I knew about my life and relationships. With no family, no wife, no child, no job, and a reputation in tatters, I faced the darkest period of my existence, unsure if I would ever recover from such complete devastation. The weeks following my family's betrayal were a blur of despair and survival mode decisions. The company terminated my employment, accepting Alicia's accusations despite inconsistencies in her story. With no income-limited savings and mounting legal fees, I could no longer afford our mortgage. I sold the house at a loss, watching strangers cart away furniture that Emma and I had carefully selected together. My divorce was finalized with stunning speed, with the judge accepting Emma's claims about my character without substantial evidence. I was granted no custody rights to my unborn child, only the obligation to provide child support. The financial strain pushed me to the brink of bankruptcy, forcing me to sell my car and most of my possessions. Depression consumed me entirely. I moved into a cheap studio apartment, barely leaving, except to attend fruitless job interviews where the shadow of sexual harassment allegations followed me. Each night brought nightmares of my father and brother's faces contorted with hatred of Emma turning away of a baby I would never meet. After 3 months of this half-life existence, I made a decision born of desperation and survival instinct. I would leave Connecticut, change my name legally, and start over somewhere no one knew me or the lies that had destroyed me. With the last of my savings, I purchased a bus ticket to Portland, Oregon, as far from my old life as I could manage. The first year in Portland was an exercise in humility and persistence. I used my middle name Alexander and secured a position as a construction worker, far below my qualifications, but willing to hire me without extensive background checks. I lived in a shared house with 4 roommates, saved every dollar possible, and focused on the simple goal of survival. Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild. I took night classes to earn additional certifications, volunteered at community projects to build local references, and gradually worked my way up to a drafting position at a small engineering firm. By the 3rd year, I had saved enough for a security deposit on a modest 1-bedroom apartment of my own. Throughout this rebuilding period, I made several attempts to connect with my family. I sent letters to my parents' home explaining my side of the story in painstaking detail. I tried to find information about my child, desperate to know if I had a son or daughter. Every attempt was met with silence, or returned mail marked refused. Social media provided glimpses into the life I had lost. Emma had given birth to a girl, Lily, who had my eyes and smile. She and Jake had married shortly after my daughter's 1st birthday. My parents doted on their granddaughter, posting photos of family gatherings where everyone looked happy and complete without me. I dated occasionally during those years, but never allowed myself to get close to anyone. The fear of betrayal lingered, and I could not bring myself to be fully vulnerable again. Instead, I poured my energy into my career, eventually securing a position as a project manager at a respected engineering firm in Seattle, rebuilding my professional reputation through consistent excellence and reliability. It was during my 8th year away from Connecticut that fate intervened in an unexpected way. I was supervising a hospital renovation project when I quite literally bumped into a woman carrying coffee in the lobby. As I helped her clean up the spilled drink, we made eye contact, and I found myself staring into familiar blue eyes. Sophie Wilson, Emma's younger sister, had become a pediatric surgeon and was attending a medical conference at the hospital. She recognized me instantly, her expression shifting from surprise to conflicted emotion. We had been close during my marriage to Emma, with Sophie often joining us for movie nights and family dinners. She had been in Europe studying medicine during the implosion of my marriage, and I had always wondered what she had been told about me. After an awkward moment of silence, Sophie suggested we get coffee to replace the one she had spilled. Over the next 2 hours, I learned that she had never fully believed the accusations against me. Having known Alicia socially through mutual friends, Sophie had witnessed her manipulative behavior firsthand and had questioned the convenient timing of her allegations. More shocking was Sophie's revelation that Alicia had eventually been fired from Anderson Engineering for similar behavior, with another manager casting doubt on her credibility. This information had never reached my family, who had already settled comfortably into their narrative of my guilt. Sophie and I exchanged contact information, and over the following months, we developed a cautious friendship. She became my connection to the life I had lost, sharing carefully curated updates about my daughter, who was now 8 years old, and showing talent in mathematics and art. Sophie never pushed me to reconnect with my family, but provided honest insights about their continued anger and Jake and Emma's seemingly perfect marriage. Our friendship gradually deepened as Sophie took rotations at Seattle Children's Hospital, spending more time in the city. We discovered shared interests beyond our complicated family connection, enjoying hiking in the Pacific Northwest, obscure documentary films, and cooking elaborate meals together. After 2 years of platonic connection, our relationship organically evolved into something more, though we both approached romance with caution, aware of the potential complications. Sophie's support gave me the courage to finally confront my past directly. With her by my side, I hired a private investigator to build a comprehensive case, proving Alicia's deception, including testimony from former colleagues who had witnessed her behavior and technical evidence showing how she had manipulated the photos and text messages used against me. Armed with this evidence and Sophie's unwavering belief in me, I began to feel something I had not experienced in years: hope for vindication and the possibility of reconnecting with my daughter, now 10 years old, and growing up without knowing her biological father. As my relationship with Sophie deepened, we faced the inevitable question of how to approach my estranged family. After much discussion, Sophie took the first step, visiting Connecticut and sharing the evidence of my innocence with her parents. Robert and Diana Wilson, now in their 70s, were initially skeptical, but eventually shaken by the comprehensive documentation proving Alicia's deception. Their acceptance of the truth created the first crack in the wall separating me from my past. Sophie's parents reached out with a heartfelt letter of apology, acknowledging the pain they had contributed to and expressing hope for reconciliation. Their support provided leverage to approach my own parents, who had remained steadfast in their rejection of me. With Sophie's encouragement, I sent the complete investigation file to my parents' home, along with a letter expressing my continued love for them, despite the years of estrangement. 3 weeks passed with no response, leading me to believe they had discarded the package unread. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening, my phone rang with a Connecticut number I did not recognize. My mother's voice, aged and hesitant, came through the line. She and Dad had reviewed the evidence and had been grappling with the horrible realization that they had abandoned their innocent son. The conversation was awkward and painful, filled with long pauses and suppressed emotions. They asked for time to process everything before further communication, which I granted, despite my hunger for immediate reconnection. The situation with Jake and Emma was far more complicated. According to my parents, they had built a seemingly happy life together, with Jake adopting Lily legally and the couple having 2 additional children. They lived in my childhood home, purchased from my parents when they downsized, creating a continuous family narrative that excluded my existence. Sophie and I debated the ethics of disrupting their family unit for the sake of my relationship with Lily, now 14, and unaware of her true paternity. The decision was taken out of our hands when my parents, in their well-intentioned but clumsy attempt at family healing, informed Jake and Emma about the evidence clearing my name. The resulting confrontation happened during my first visit to Connecticut in 16 years. Sophie and I had traveled east to meet with my parents for a tentative reunion, staying in a hotel rather than the family home to maintain appropriate boundaries. On our second day in town, Jake arrived unannounced at our hotel room, his face a storm of conflicting emotions. The conversation that followed was one of the most difficult of my life. Jake admitted that he had harbored doubts about the accusations against me, but had suppressed them partly out of confirmation bias and partly because believing my guilt had given him permission to pursue Emma. He confessed to feeling both tremendous guilt and defensive anger trapped between acknowledging his wrong and protecting the family he had built. When I asked about meeting Lily, Jake became visibly distressed. Emma, he revealed, was vehemently opposed to any contact between us, viewing it as a threat to their family stability. She had threatened to take the children and leave if he supported a reunion. His loyalty ultimately remained with his wife and the life they had constructed from the ashes of my destruction. The meeting ended with an uneasy truce, neither forgiveness nor continued hostility, but a somber acknowledgement of a situation with no clean resolution. Jake promised to gradually introduce the truth to Lily when she turned 18, allowing her to make her own decision about meeting me. It was not the outcome I had hoped for, but it offered a sliver of possibility for the future. My relationship with my parents slowly rebuilt over the following year with regular phone calls and occasional visits. They sold their remaining heirlooms to create a trust fund for Lily's education, a gesture of atonement I deeply appreciated. The easy closeness of my childhood would never fully return, but we established a new connection based on painful wisdom and mutual forgiveness. Meanwhile, Sophie and I continued building our life together in Seattle. Her parents welcomed me back into their family with open arms, treating me with the warmth and acceptance I had been denied for so long. We purchased a house with a garden where Sophie cultivated heirloom vegetables, and I built a workshop for woodworking projects, creating a peaceful sanctuary after years of turmoil. 2 years after our reconnection with my family, Sophie and I married in a small ceremony overlooking Puget Sound. My parents attended, as did the Wilsons, creating an unusual but healing family circle. Jake sent a congratulatory card but did not attend a decision I understood and accepted. Emma maintained her distance, refusing any contact or acknowledgement of our relationship. 6 months after our wedding, we received an unexpected letter bearing Lily's handwriting. Now 16, she had discovered the truth through overheard conversations and her own investigation. Without her parents' knowledge, she had reached out expressing curiosity about the father she had never known and asking for medical history information. Our correspondence began cautiously, with Sophie helping me navigate the complex emotions of connecting with my daughter without undermining her relationship with the only father she had known. We exchanged letters about shared interests, genetic traits, and my side of the family's history. When she sent a school photograph, I was struck by how much she resembled my mother in her youth, the genetic connection undeniable despite years of separation. Life has a strange way of coming full circle. The vindictive lies that destroyed my first chance at family ultimately led me to Sophie, whose strength and compassion have made me a better man than I might otherwise have become. The loss of my daughter's early years is a wound that will never fully heal, but our budding relationship offers hope for the future we might build. I have learned that forgiveness is not a single act, but a daily choice. I forgive my parents for their failure to believe in me, understanding that their reaction came from a place of shock and misplaced protectiveness. I am working toward forgiving Jake, recognizing the complex human emotions that drove his betrayal. Forgiving Emma and Alicia remains a work in progress, something I strive toward not for their benefit but for my own peace. The greatest lesson from my 16-year journey is that resilience is born from our deepest wounds. When everything was taken from me, I discovered a core of strength I never knew existed. If you are facing your own betrayal or false accusation, know that surviving such devastation is possible. The path forward may look nothing like the one you planned, but it can lead to unexpected joy and connection. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal or false accusations? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey of resilience resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming life's greatest challenges. And consider sharing this video with someone who might need to hear that there is hope beyond their darkest moment. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the family we create through choice proves stronger than the one we are born into.